Just got done packing, gonna fly out tomorrow to Arkansas for the Hogeye Marathon. I chose this race because my sister lives out there and it was a good fit on my long-range training plan. My kind of whole idea was wanting to get faster on the roads, on something shorter and faster than kind of my primary goal, which is the Bear 100. So I wanted to get in really good fit marathon shape and then see how well that transferred out onto the trails in the summer. Unfortunately, my training hasn't quite gone as planned. After I got mono back in August, it was a real grind just getting my baseline fitness back from where I was to where I ended up after getting sick. And so, I obviously took time off when I was really sick, but then kind of got right back into training of not intense training, but keeping things at low intensity and just waiting to see until kind of my baseline aerobic efficiency was back in line with where it was before I got sick. That took me until about the end of October. And at that point, I just kind of got really tired mentally of the grind. And so instead of transitioning into my, high intensity VO2 max work, which is what I had planned at that time, and then I was going to transition into more tempo work and then marathon specific preparation after that, I instead just training consistently did not happen as well as I wanted it to. I just mentally needed a break. My foot started hurting a little bit as well. So through most of November and December, I wasn't super consistent with training. I started getting back into some more good solid weeks in January. Things were going pretty well. I planned a specific kind of marathon training camp where I did kind of big jump up in volume for 4 days, took time off work just so I could focus on training, and that went really well. And then just a few weeks ago, basically my final 2 weeks before tapering, I started feeling like some heavier fatigue was settling in. So now I'm a little bit unsure if I did a little too much too soon, coming back from my break over the winter. But in any case, at this point, all I can do is finish out the taper and see how the race goes. My goals for the race, I originally was thinking I kind of wanted to run a 2:45 with all of the, that's just kind of what I felt like I'd be able to do. And when I did some lactate testing, it seemed like that was right in the range of what would be possible if I was well trained. Since I am not super confident in my training the past couple weeks, I'm really not having a time goal for this race. I really just want to pace it and race it well, give a good solid consistent effort. I've run 3 marathons before. Yeah, 3 marathons before. One of them went really well. One of them I didn't try that hard, so it was pretty easy. And the other one I pushed too hard and I blew up at 20 miles. So I kind of have some experience to base off, how a marathon's supposed to feel, but it's been quite a few years since I've done that, so it'll still be a challenge. So I just want to kind of give a good consistent effort for the whole day and see what I can do. And that brings me to my second goal, is to set a new marathon PR, which should be easy as long as I don't overcook myself and blow up. My PR right now is a 3:08 that I ran back when I was 18 years old, and I've now been training consistently for the past 2.5 years, relatively consistently. I'm much more fit now than I was back then. So I think under 3 hours is completely feasible. Under 250 probably still realistic. We'll see. I don't want to limit myself either. Maybe I still can go under 245, so we'll just see how the day shakes out, and I just want to have fun.
All right, here we go. Runners to your mark. Get set. Go.
Okay, so back home in Utah, it's been about 2 weeks since the marathon. Just got back from my long run this morning. Felt pretty nice, got out on some trails, but anyway, just wanted to recap my Hogeye Marathon results and what happened, what lessons I've learned. So I guess first things first, the results. I couldn't find the results online, so I don't know exactly what my chip time was, but at least on my Garmin, I ran a 3:22:42, which is 7:44 per mile. I guess that's my second fastest marathon I've ever run, but is still pretty far off from what I think I'm capable of, and even what I think I was capable of on the day. There were just a number of errors that I made that led to me not having a good result overall. So I guess we'll start there with what went wrong. Since it's been a couple weeks, I'm a little further removed from it and I've had some time to think through it and kind of analyze and place, different weights on the different factors that went wrong. And I think number one overall, I just need to own up to it, is I just went out too fast. My typical problem, I'd say I get that right about only 1 out of every 4 races or something like that. So that's part of why I'm wanting to keep a more detailed training journal and track my training better to try and set myself up for success and improve it's like I always want to be setting aggressive goals and going for it, so there's going to be a chance of blowing up and going out too strong, but I really want to get better at knowing what I'm capable of on a given day and going out and giving it my best and feeling like I was able to pace well and have a good performance overall. Yeah, I went out too fast, and there were 2 other, I think, major factors that played into that even beyond just having too aggressive of a goal and trying to, I was stuck rigid to that kind of 245, 250 range of what I thought I could do, and didn't adjust for some of these other factors that came into play. Number one, it was quite a bit hotter down in Arkansas on race day than it has been here in Utah during training. I mean, there have probably only been 2 or 3 days total this spring that I ran in temperatures above 40 degrees. And on race morning, it was 70 degrees at the start line, and by the time I was about halfway through, it heated up to over 80 degrees, and that kind of temperature jump turns out to be pretty significant. At least I think it played a major role in, my body just had to work a lot harder, wasn't adapted to the heat, and struggled to keep the pace up. The other thing that really played into it was the course was much more hilly than I was expecting. I just kind of had looked over the course profile a little bit, but thought to myself, it's a road marathon. I'm used to doing trail ultra events, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. I'll know how to pace myself well. But man, those rolling hills through Arkansas, the cumulative effect of that was more than I was really kind of prepared for and expecting. So just kind of feel a little dumb, pretty beginner mistake to just not take into account the specificity of the course profile. So that's one thing for sure. That's my top thing on what I learned. So let's move on to that. What did I learn for next time? I want to pay closer attention to the details and conditions of the course, but my cookies are done in the oven and I'm going to go get those out before they burn. Okay, the cookies are not burned. So back to lessons that I learned. So yeah, I want to pay closer attention to the details and conditions of the course. It's just totally unacceptable at this point going forward to not have thoroughly, if this is a race that I've targeted and I want to really do well and I'm trying to get my best performance out of myself, I have to put in the time to thoroughly analyze the course and make sure that my training is matching that. I did most of my training runs on very flat roads, didn't do most of my marathon pace efforts on any sort of rolling hills, and that was definitely a mistake. The whole experience was not totally negative because kind of going into it, I wasn't feeling that sure of myself, and this is really the first race that I've been paying close attention to a lot more of the data behind my running as far as my heart rate, lactate, that kind of stuff. And so I did think I gained some more useful data. I wore my heart rate monitor for the whole marathon, and for the 3 hours and 22 minutes, my average heart rate was 170 beats per minute, which I think if I have a well-paced marathon, I could probably expect it to be, my average heart rate to be a little higher than that overall for the day, because towards the end of the run, I wasn't like running my best, and so my heart rate was a little bit lower even than what it would be if I had, paced myself well throughout the whole race. So anyway, after seeing the average heart rate of 170 for that marathon, in future marathon attempts, I can know to target below 170 for the first half, I think, and then kind of let it drift up from there. So that's one takeaway from it. Another one, the lactate testing is really only a point in time and not necessarily predictive of my performance. I want to do a better job of not just kind of taking these measurements and looking at them in isolation, but really trying to add more context around them. It was useful because, when I first started taking my lactate measurements, I didn't know what I could reasonably expect as far as like where on the lactate curve is the proper pace to be targeting for a marathon. So I had kind of chose where my lactate was 2 millimole per liter. That pace is what I did most of my marathon pace work at during training. And I think that's probably a little bit high. So in the future, I'll kind of adjust that down, maybe be looking more at like the 1.2 to 1.5 range, something like that. Because what I've seen consistently for me is my resting levels are usually right around 1.2, 1.4. And then once I've actually warmed up and I'm running, my kind of system runs more efficiently and my levels drop down to about 0.7 or 0.8 millimole per liter. So by the time it's up to 1.5, that's already a pretty significant climb over the baseline. So the 2 millimole was definitely too aggressive, at least for the training volume that I had done and the training intensity distribution. The last takeaway that I have is that volume and consistency, at least for longer endurance events, is of higher priority than intensity. I mean, I had some marathon pace workouts that I did in the lead up to this race that were better and better executed than any workouts I'd ever done previously. But just because you can have good performances in some workouts is no guarantee of success on race day. And I think one of the big things that held me back was just my overall training volume throughout the winter and spring was not at a sufficient level to support the kind of goal and expectations that I had for myself. So that's kind of the race recap. From here, I'm just excited to get back out, and hopefully as the snow melts, I can get out on the trails. I'm signed up for an urban trail running series, so gonna do like a 5K, a 10K, a 10 miler, and then I think another 10K or something like that. 4 races just here in Logan on some of the more trails closer to town. So that'll be kind of fun just to keep things fast and light. Mostly I'm doing that just, I don't know, because it sounded fun, I guess. And then my main focus though is turning towards the bear and really trying to build my volume from here in a way that is not making me slower. So I'll just keep an eye on all of that as we go forward.